जय राधा माधव कुंज विहारी जय गोपी जनवल्लभ गिरिवरधारी जय गोपी जनवल्लभ गिरिवरधारी यशोदानंदन व्रज यशोदानंदन व्रज जनरंजना यमुना तीर वनचारी यमुना तीर वनचारी जय राधा माधव कुंज विहारी जय राधा माधव कुंज विहारी जय गोपी जनवल्लभ गिरिवरधारी जय गोपी जनवल्लभ गिरिवरधारी यशोदानंदन व्रज Prabhupada, Paramahamsa Parivrajacharya, Sattva Shishyamata, Abhayacharnarvinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki, ISKCON Beauty Founder Acharya Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada ki, Ananta Vaishnava Vrinda ki, Shri Radha Madhava ki, Shri Gaur Nitai ki, Harinam Sankirtan ki, Samaveta Gaur Bhaktavinda ki, Nitai Gaur Premanandi ki, all glories to the Assemblies, all glories to the Assemblies, all glories to the Assemblies, all glories of Guru and Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Jnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manabhishtam Sthapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamiham Dadati Sapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Juta Padakamalam Sri Gurum Vaishnavanscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Nitam Sajivam Sadaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakanitam Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunnavadi Pasyatya Dishatarine Vancha Kalpatarubhasya Vipasindhu Vayevacha Patitanang Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadannaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratishe Namaha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radha Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam Karati Vachalam Pangul Langaita Girim Jatripata Maham Bande Sri Guru Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Sri Chaitanyeshwaram Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna. So unfortunately I became sick from yesterday night. So my voice will not be so enthusiastic. Please excuse me for that. So today I will be beginning a series of lecture. Hopefully I can finish in 3 sessions. Tonight, tomorrow morning and tomorrow evening. The topic is, who is a disciple? So it's a very interesting topic. So I chose this topic because in ISKCON there are a lot of difference of opinion about the position of Guru, but there is no confusion about the position of a disciple. So I thought this is a very straightforward topic, and everybody has to be a disciple to become a pure devotee of the Lord. So I thought this topic will enlighten the devotees of ISKCON movement. So I have been talking this topic for last 8-9 months in different places. So I thought I came to Balaram this, and also after a few days there will be Vyasa Puja of our beloved spiritual master. So I thought this is a correct moment also to prepare ourselves with this topic. The theme of the topic I took from a verse from Bhagavad Gita, and I'll narrate that verse with the help of different pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and different other acharyas. The theme verse is from 4th chapter, text number 34. It's a very famous verse. Krishna talks about the process of approaching a bona fide spiritual master by a disciple. Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprasthena sevaya upadekshantita jnanam jnanina tattva darshina. Just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The self-realized souls can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth. So, in this verse, 3 aspects have been highlighted by Krishna to Arjuna. Submission, service and inquiry. These are the 3 aspects of a disciple when he is approaching a bona fide spiritual master. Generally, in our modern educational system, we just inquire. We ask questions as a student and the teacher gives the answer. It's like a sharing of information. But spiritual life is not a process of sharing information. If that is the case, then Google will be the super spiritual master. Anything you want to know, you can do Google search and you can get the information. So spiritual life is not the life to gather information. So gathering information is very easy. But we are talking about something different here. So spiritual life is not the process of gathering information. Spiritual life is the life of transformation of the heart. And that transformation of the heart takes place through a different scientific process. It's a spiritual process. Because spiritual life means transformation of our character. A devotee is judged not by how much information he has. A devotee is judged by his quality. And this quality is imparted through the process of surrender. And that is the main obstacle we face while we are practicing Krishna consciousness. Because by nature, the conditioned souls are very proud. And a person who is very proud is very, very difficult to surrender. And in this world, nobody wants to surrender. But whether you want to surrender or not want to surrender, for your material life also you have to surrender. Forcefully. We are thinking we are master, but we are always a servant. Master means independent, and servant means dependent. So, we take birth by a process which is not controlled by us. How many of you, those who are here, could choose your parents? No, that possibility is not there. So we are forced to take birth in a certain situation from certain parents, right? So that shows that we are not independent. We are controlled, we are not the controller. From the very beginning of our existence in this body, we are controlled by some higher force. So, but we think that we are independent, and that thinking continues till we die, and that thinking continues life after life. And that is the cause of our suffering. The controlled living entity wants to be the controller, and that is the cause of our bondage. That is the cause of our suffering. So therefore, we have to realize that whether we want or don't want, we are the servant. That is the beginning of our spiritual life. So those spirit souls realize that they search for spiritual life. And spiritual life begins with tadvidhi pranipatena. Arjuna was giving a lot of arguments that we should not fight. Then he was giving so many arguments, and arguments were very nice arguments. From different point of view, even from Shastra, he was quoting different arguments, and he was justifying that he should not fight. But at the end, he could understand that he is confused. For to talk about removing the confusion of others, Arjuna, in the process of putting some arguments, he was confused. But the glory of Arjuna is that he could realize that very quickly. Immediately understood. How many slokas he needed? Few slokas. After giving few arguments, he could realize that he is confused. And he accepted that. And as soon as he accepted, then spiritual inquiry started. Spiritual knowledge started to flow. So as long as Arjuna was putting arguments, Krishna was not talking. Krishna was hearing the arguments. So that is the symptom of a guru. Because Krishna is the original guru. So Krishna started speaking to Arjuna when Arjuna surrendered himself. Karpanna dasupata sabhava prichyamitam dharma sammuracheta jasreya sannischitang gruhitan me sisyastyam sadhimangtam prapannam. He surrendered himself and accepted him as his disciple. So then Krishna started talking. So you may think, why is the process like this? Why we cannot understand spiritual life even without surrender? Because spiritual knowledge is imparted in the heart. Dibbogyan Hide Prakashita. Spiritual knowledge is manifested, or spiritual knowledge is revealed in the heart. We never sing that Dibbogyan Brahne Prakashita, right? Material knowledge is manifested in the brain. You can accumulate information and write down, pass exam, getting different degrees. It's nothing to do with the heart. But spiritual knowledge is revealed in the heart. And when the heart becomes eligible to receive that spiritual knowledge, when the heart is ready to surrender. Because spiritual knowledge flows down. It's a descending process. And material knowledge is an ascending process. You have to put your own endeavor to get material knowledge. But spiritual knowledge comes down and you have to receive that knowledge. So who can receive? Those who are surrendered. So therefore, submission is very, very important. After submission, you have to serve. And when you do these two things, when submission is there and service is there, then you are eligible to ask question to the spiritual master. So therefore, our discussion will flow like this. First we will talk about surrender. Second we will talk about service. And at the end we will talk about inquiry. So this is the flow of the discussion. And Srila Prabhupada's purport explains, unless there is submission and service, inquiries from the learned spiritual master will not be effective. Prabhupada writes in the purport. You can ask questions, no problem. But your inquiry will not be so effective because you don't have those two qualifications of surrender and service to the spiritual master. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in his song, Saranagati song, he is highlighting 6 symptoms of surrender. Daina Atmanivedan Gaptitya Varan, অবশ্য রক্ষিবে কৃষ্ণ বিশ্বাস পালন, ভক্তি অনুকূল মাত্র কার্যের শিকার, ভক্তি প্রতিকূল ভাব বর্জন অঙ্গীকার. So these are the 6 symptoms of surrender. So first is Daina. Daina means humility. Then Atmanivedan. Atmanivedan means dedication of the self, full surrender. Gotripte Varan, accepting Krishna as our maintainer. Avasya Rakhibe Krishna Vishwasya Palan, complete faith that Krishna will protect us. Bhakti Anukul Matra Karjarasika, those who are favorable for our Krishna consciousness should be accepted. And things which are unfavorable, Bhakti Pratikul Bhav Varjanangika. The things which are unfavorable for devotional service should be rejected. So these are the 6 symptoms of surrender. And surrender begins with Daina. Srila Prabhupada said, unless one is meek and humble, to make progress in spiritual life is very difficult. He is writing in Srimad Bhagavatam. And what is humility? So humility is a natural state of consciousness of a living entity. That is the natural state. Pride is an artificial state of consciousness of the living entity. But humility is a natural state of consciousness of the living entity. Why is that? Because Prabhupada says Atma, or the spirit soul, is very minute. 1/10,000 part of the tip of the hair. It is very minute. So naturally, the soul is very insignificant by nature. But because of false ego, Krishna boli je jeev bhagavancha kare. As soon as the living entity forgets Krishna, then living entity is covered over by false ego. And because of that false ego, the living entity starts thinking, I am great. I am the enjoyer. And everything related to me is meant for my enjoyment. That is the state of consciousness of conditioned soul. Full of ahankara, full of pride, which is false. That's why Prabhupada uses the term false ego. But real ego is humility. So, why we become proud? What is the root cause of pride? Root cause of pride is ignorance. Because when you are ignorant, then you forget your real position. So because of that ignorance, we start thinking that we are great people. And when we are far, far away from great personalities, then we start feeling that we are great. So I generally give the example of mountain. So mountain by nature is very big, is huge. But when you see the mountain from a far distance, mountain doesn't look so big. It looks small. And you also feel that I am also like mountain. Size of the mountain and size of me is almost same. So that is called mountain-like false ego. So, why is that? Because that man is far, far away from the mountain. That is the cause of his pride. So when that same man starts walking and goes closer to that mountain, what happens? Two things happen. And when he is coming closer to the mountain starts appearing bigger and bigger. And that man starts realizing what? Very, very small. Size is the same, but realization is different. So it's not that mountain has become big and he has become small. It's not like that. It's a relativity, no? The whole material world is a relative world. So that is the same principle in our spiritual life. Why we are proud? Because we are far, far away from Krishna, who is like mountain. So when we are far, far away from Krishna, we start thinking we are also like Krishna. That is natural. But when by the process of devotional service, When the living entity comes closer to Krishna, what happens? Krishna starts appearing greater and greater, and the living entity starts realizing smaller and smaller. That is a natural process. So humility comes from knowledge and pride comes from ignorance. So how do we know that we are advancing in Krishna consciousness? How do we know that we are coming closer to Krishna? When we start realizing the greatness of Krishna and when we start realizing the insignificant nature of living entity. That is the symptom of advancement in Krishna consciousness. But what happens? We have been taught from the beginning of our Krishna consciousness that we have to develop humility. So Prabhuji, I am so fallen. Please be merciful. So that is also good, but that is not everything. So some devotee asked Bhaktitirtha Swami Maharaj that is this a correct approach? He said, yes, fake it till you make it. But that faking should be genuine. So, humility does not mean not thinking less of oneself. It's not humility. Oh, I am so fallen, I am so sinful. That is also pride. Because you are thinking of yourself. Humility means not thinking of yourself. Meditate on greatness of Krishna, meditate on greatness of other living entity. That is the symptom of humility. Humility begins when we start appreciating the greatness of others. That is the beginning of humility, not thinking, oh, I am so humble. Obviously, when you start appreciating the greatness of Krishna and greatness of the pure devotees, obviously, naturally, you will develop humility. You don't have to try for that. That's a natural process. So therefore, humility should be cultivated through the process of appreciating the greatness of others. So I spoke day before yesterday also. Vidya vinaya sampanne brahmane gavihastini sunichaiva sapakecha pandita samadarshina. So beginning of our appreciation is based on this sloka. When we start appreciating every living entity as a spirit soul, then naturally we will have equal vision. Then Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, Sakale Samman Karite Sagati Dehonatha Jatha Jatha Tabe to Gaibo Harinama Sukhi Aparadha Habe Hatha. Then when we start seeing living entity on the spiritual platform, naturally we have a tendency to give respect to others. That is called spiritual vision. That is called knowledge. Then you can understand the futility or insignificance of material education. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is telling, Jaravidya Jato Mayaro Vaibhav Tomaro Bhajane Badha Moho Janmiya Anitya Sangsare Jivke Korai Gadha. So generally education means, knowledge means that brings our humility in the character. But we have seen, or we are seeing, that material education makes the living entity, not living entity, makes the human being very proud. And I was mentioning elaborately day before yesterday how 1 degree, 1 educational degree, pride, then more degree, more pride. How many degrees we can put? I have seen a visiting card of a devotee having I think 15 degrees and I think 20 positions on the card, and they feel very proud. And that is the nature of this world. But we have only 1 degree and 1 identification. Jive Sarubhai Krishna Nityadas. That is enough. But because of the nature of this material world, even we are in Krishna consciousness, we identify ourselves with